Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 7th, 2021 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission. I hope everyone's well tonight. Thank you for being here. First up on the agenda is the approval of our minutes from two meetings, March 3rd and March 17th. And if there's no corrections or discussion on those, we could take those two in one motion if someone is ready.
Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of March 3rd, 2021, as well as the minutes of March 17th, 2021 as read into the record.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Commissioner Wessel.
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman.
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye as well. That passes unanimously. Next up is our consent agenda, and we have one item on that tonight for AFP-8830-2020, Amber Commons street name changes in the R20 medium density residential zone, and this is an amendment to the final site plan. Are there any questions for staff on the consent agenda?
Very controversial. I think it's very cutting edge. We're going to change the name of the street, but no comment. Sorry.
Okay. If there aren't any questions, since this is a consent agenda, if there's a motion, please, on that, I would appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Commissioner Wessel.
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman.
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn.
Aye.
And I vote aye. That passes unanimously. All right, next up is a little something unusual for us, a recommendation to the Board of Appeals, and this is for BOA-8798-2021, Truck and Auto Inc., a special exception for auto repair at 5 Brookes Avenue in the CBD Central Business District Zone. Presenting from staff is Caroline Seiden. We have to bring Caroline over, I guess, still. Give it just a second. Good evening, Caroline.
Good evening. Is everybody else here? Let me make sure. I just want to wait for them all to be here.
Sure.
Showing up one by one. Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is a recommendation to the Board of Appeals on special exception case BOA 8798-2021 for an auto repair shop at 5 Brookes Avenue. If we can bring up page 34, please. There it is. Next page. So this is the aerial of 5 Brookes. You can see the outline of the property in blue on Brookes Avenue, just right around the corner from Old North Frederick Avenue, as well as the existing North Frederick Avenue. The subject property is zoned CBD, Central Business District Zone, and pursuant to section 24-160 F2 C8 of the city zoning ordinance, all new automobile, motorcycle, marine, and truck repair and services require a special exception despite the fact that the property was previously operated as an auto repair shop. That's due to a change in the ordinance since the original shop was there. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Audrey Haramio, who is here representing the property owner. The property owner is also here, as well as the architect and attorney. So they should be able to take you through the presentation.
Great, thank you.
I'll turn it over to Audrey.
Good evening, everyone.
Audrey, it looks like you're on mute.
Good evening, all.
Oh, I'm right here. Thank you. Sorry about that. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Audrey Haramio. I am the project manager for the owner, Abraham Ba. We're here advocating for the improvements made and to continue to utilize the space as a truck and auto repair shop. We are proposing some significant changes to the building itself, but also improvements to the site plan. As you can see on page 34, the building is a single story repair shop. No improvements have been made since the 1970s. We are proposing on page, give me 1 second so you guys can get to see a little bit of the elevations. Can we please turn to page, give me 1 second, sorry, I'm doing this on a laptop, so forgive me, page 37, please. So as you can see, we are proposing to convert or to add to the space a mezzanine area, which will only add in height and 337 square feet in the frontage, but continuing to keep the rear or the end where the bays are located for height. We're adding some windows, and then I will let Kim Citrone with DNC. So we have, like Caroline stated, we have the architect present, Kim Citrone, who went ahead and designed this nice little elevation schematic for you. And we also have the attorney who has been handling the communication between the adjacent lot owners to get some kind of, I would say, agreements with the other lot owners for the utilization of the ingress egress, which is the private alleys. But as of right now, what we're proposing is to maintain the use as a repair shop and to add some improvements and maintenance to both the private alleys and our property, which is 5 Brookes, which will add parking, 5 spaces, handicap parking, a little bit of greenage in the front, a handicap ramp to become ADA compliant, windows, and lighting for security.
Can we go to page 36 just so the site plan can be up while you're describing that, Audrey? There you
Sure.
go.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Sorry, gentlemen, this is my first meeting, so bear with me. If you have any questions, please just feel free to interrupt me. So at the entry by the ADA lighting, by the ADA ramp and parking, we're proposing a little bit of green area ratio, a little bit of green with grass between the ramp and the walkway. At the rear of the property, where we have ingress egress, we will have parallel parking next to the building with approximately 4 spaces. We're proposing to utilize the private alley as a way and a means to enter and exit the property for turning radius into the bays. In page, before we turn the page, does anyone have any questions?
Let me just get a clarification, because it's a little hard to tell from this site plan the extent of new work. When you reference the alley or the private alley that you're utilizing, it's outside of the property line, correct? You're talking about that thin, what essentially is between the 2 boundary lines, and it says, I think it says Buell Gardner. Is that correct, or is the alley what exactly where you're talking about?
That is correct.
Okay.
So we're between what used to be lot 1 is now lot 21 and our lot. And that is right now where we're attempting to get agreements with the lot 21 owner and lot 3 owner to be able to utilize that as ingress egress.
Okay. And currently, is it a shared access or no, or is it informally? What's the status of that now?
So currently it seems to be a bypass between North Frederick into to
Correct.
Brookes,
Mhm.
and then the transition which goes if you guys could assist me here, Caroline, what's that main road that goes from Brookes in the
North-
corner?
North Frederick Avenue?
Not behind, but in front, where you turn into Brookes to go right towards our property. If I could see it right there, hold on, give me 1 second. Because in the rear is North Frederick the same in the rear? Is that the same street?
Well, there's old North Frederick Avenue, and then, which is the kind of the remnants of before the bridge was built. And so
Got it.
if that's what, I think that's what you're referring to.
So what you're
So,
saying
yeah.
is when people get stranded on that, essentially it's a dead end now. They
Yeah.
use this alley to kind of get out of there without having to turn around and go back toward the,
Both, actually both. They're using the alley right now, but Verizon is utilizing the alley. We've seen a number of cars utilizing that private alley to be able to get to Brookes and then to the new North Frederick
Sure.
from the old North Frederick.
sure, well, I guess what I'm asking is it by right or by agreement or just sort of because it's there, people use it?
Actually, it's because it's there, people are utilizing it. There's no agreements right now in place or updated title.
Okay, so who controls it? The property owner that's on the corner of Frederick and Brookes, North Frederick Avenue and Brookes? Is that, or is it another party altogether?
No, it seems in disrepair and abandonment at this point.
Caroline, do you understand what I'm asking? Is it,
Yeah, so as best as we've done some research on this, and as best as we can tell, it's a little muddy.
okay,
These are extraordinarily old lots, and there's
Right.
documentation going back, I think, to 1890.
mhm,
You can believe it. And what we think is going on is that it's possible that there is still just one property owner who may or may not be aware that they are the property owner, but that that there's been an access agreement among all of the adjacent property owners for egress for 100 years.
okay,
And that they share access to it, even though, as Audrey said, there are a lot of people that use it as a cut through, but that the actual access is shared by some of those property owners. But there, we do have, I mean, in order for them to be able to improve that alley, we do need to get some sort of agreement from either the property owners in common, or if we can identify who the property owner is before we issue a permit. Alternatively, they may be able to claim the alley in order to improve
sure.
it.
So, but, and I guess what I'm trying to do is just be very clear about where edges are. So if you look at the aerial that you have in the staff report.
We can go back to, that's page 34.
Okay. If you look at that and be ready to pull the site plan back up, because this is what I'm trying to line up in my,
Yeah.
in the view. The blue line at the western edge is the alley that we're talking, or the shared alley is outside that blue line, right? It's between that blue line and the small building on the corner.
Right. So
Okay.
what we had proposed and what they have done is to bring that alley along with their share of what would be a commercial service road up to the standards of a commercial service road. So
Okay.
the alley, I think, is 12 feet. Commercial service road is 31 feet. So what we've done in other circumstances like this is ask each of the adjacent property owners to take over their share of finishing that 31 feet out. So they will add another 9.5 feet on their side for access. And then in addition to that, provide their parking and a sidewalk that's completely on their property
Okay.
and for their use.
Okay.
But then they'll provide an easement for the 9.5 feet so that they can get two-way access in and out of the site.
And right now, the prevailing traffic pattern for folks going north on the old Frederick Avenue, they're making a right-hand turn and going around the back or the side of that little building on the corner and then coming up between those two buildings. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they probably, as many of them are on the property as they are off of it when they come up to Brooks Avenue, I'm thinking, right? Because there's really no distinguishing curb.
Yeah, and there's a depressed curb there that also helps with people to cut through there very easily. And they'll close up some of that and continue the sidewalk, so it'll be a much more defined entrance as well.
Okay, okay. I think I took you off track of your presentation. I apologize. So,
It's okay. I mean, these are valid questions because that is one of the concerns. And of course, as much as we want to get those 9 feet and then be able to claim those 9 feet to then have ingress egress on our property, we also need the cooperation of the adjacent property owners. So I'm going to go ahead and allow David to speak on that because David Courtling is our attorney and he has been the one who's been contacting the adjacent property owners since last year, May.
okay.
I can update you on what we've done. As indicated, there was some confusion, I believe, as to who actually owns the alleyway. As I understand it, for well over 100 years, it's just been the practice of the adjoining landowners to cooperate in the use of the property. I don't know that anybody has taken responsibility for maintenance of the alley. We're doing 2 things. The initial research that we had received made it unclear for us to determine the owner of that property. So we're going back and redoing the title work on that. And second of all, we've made numerous efforts to reach out to the adjoining landowners to secure an agreement among them. The general terms of the agreement the general terms are that we have agreed to do the initial work to bring that alleyway up to code to meet whatever requirements the city has for our site plan. And then going forward to have a defined set of responsibility among the adjoining landowners so that we can maintain that. And I think somebody else would need to speak to exactly what improvements it is that we're doing, but the intent was for us to absorb those costs up front and then work out with the adjoining owners the ongoing maintenance requirements.
But I guess the question will be, the contingency is if you can't secure an access agreement or whatever vehicle needs to be established to use the alley, will the site plan stand on its own without the alley space or without that 9 feet right away? For property, essentially, it's not right away, it's property.
That I can speak to that, Audrey.
Right. So on its own, because of the type of vehicles that we are repairing, there is going to be a little bit of a limitation on the location of where the parallel parking is located and how much width it gives us. We on sheet, let me go ahead and give you that sheet number where it gives the example of the turning radius, which is a site plan. Give me 1 second. Okay,
I believe it's packet page 61.
thank you. Because we have a lot of sheets here. Yes, that is correct. Okay, so in the lower left-hand side, the truck that we're proposing in our repairs are about 8 feet wide. The thing about that is that when we come to that one corner, I mean, we have a clearance. It's an 11-foot after the parallel parking. So we can utilize our space, but then what we're doing at that point, we're gonna have to go ahead and do like a 3-point turnaround to get into the bays in and out.
Okay. All right, so that's an unknown right now, whether you control that property or not, but it looks like the short answer is without it, the site plan as proposed really won't work, but there might be some other way to solve for moving the business in there. That's good enough for now, at least to answer the question. So let's go ahead and finish the presentation unless anybody has any other questions about the information so far. And if not, why don't you go ahead and finish the presentation?
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pass this on over to the architect so she can talk to you about the materials that are going to be used on the improvements that we're doing on the actual building and the aesthetic of the building itself.
Okay.
Sure. Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Centrone of DNC Architects. If you could go to page 47, please. I think that's the best comparison to show. Yeah. The upper image shows what's there now, and the lower image shows the proposed front facade. So in short, we need to make the building taller to accommodate trucks, but we're keeping the existing brick and CMU at the lower level. And we are adding, we're going vertical another level to get Ibrahim that height he needs and to add a mezzanine towards the front. To make his space work inside the building, we need to put a bathroom in the front and stairs in the front. And so you see that we are losing some windows on the lower level. And we tried to offset that by adding some windows at the upper level towards the center of the building. And that will be above the mezzanine, but it can also help with the bringing some light into the auto repair space. The upper level is intended to be EIFS, and the lower level will remain as brick and CMU, but be painted. And what we've done is to kind of update, modernize, and liven up the facade all the way around the building, is we've created this kind of randomized but pattern with various shades of gray blues, and then added the awnings in kind of a rusty red to warm it up in the front door. We are a commercial building, but we are next to a residential area. And so the front facade has, with the added height, it has a proportion and pattern kind of similar in feel to the residential neighborhood street that continues after this building. You know, where you see porches on the rest of the street, we have the awning and the front entry. So it's very much still a commercial building, but we think that in terms of proportion and openings on the front, we're being very respectful of our neighbors. And if you want to go to the next page, we can show what happens on the side of the building. So there in the front corner, you see we did lose the windows for the bathroom. The other openings are mostly existing to remain. We've enlarged and made one a little larger, and we've added some windows at the top level with awnings to meet code for because this is the west facade, southwest. And to bring some light into the space below, and go ahead to the next page. So where there's currently 2 garage doors, we are just going to have one larger one. It'll be taller. You can see where the CMU ends and the EIFS starts above it, that we have to go a little higher than that to accommodate the trucks. And we're adding a exit door out the back and some windows into the garage door to get some more light into the space if the door is not open. And keep going. The next page, please. On the side where we're at the property line, there are existing windows and we are proposing to keep them. But we didn't add any at the upper level because it is on the property line. I think that sums it up. Are there any questions? Oh, there was a question, a comment that came up during review about mechanical equipment on the roof, anything like that. We're not going to have any mechanical equipment on the roof. We have heaters in the garage space, which are just going to have vents. We have through wall heaters, air conditioners at the office space in the front. So there will be some louvers, but no large pieces of equipment on the roof.
Okay. How about site lighting? Anything added there?
I believe that was there's a page on the civil plans showing that. Let me check what and Audrey can probably answer that question, but.
So we have 2 pendant lighting happening on the property, one in the front. Let me see where.
I think page 62 has a kind of a light study.
It's all building mounted. You're not doing any pole mounted lighting.
No, that is right now. We have a light at the rear by the door, right above the door on the side of the building. And then we have one in the front
All right. All right, is that the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions before we see if anyone in the public wants to comment?
No.
Lloyd?
Yeah, I'm curious about, you mentioned something about ventilation. Typically in an auto repair facility, there's a lot of fans going on and stuff like that. You're near a residential area. What kind of a capacity will the ventilation have, or the fans, to get rid of the fumes? Is there any provision for that?
So
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Aud.
No,
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say there are exhaust fans. I'm not sure off the top of my head what their capacity is, but Audrey, maybe you know a little more about it, or I can pull up some information.
Will they be increased? In other words, with the addition, do you need to increase the capacity?
It's all new systems, so it'll be considered in terms of current code. Everything is to be brought up to current code. The interior of the building is in very, very bad condition, and everything will be new.
My concern again is the neighbors. As you said, there are residents nearby. So will there be increased noise? That's my concern.
So the proximity of the residential housing right now are 7 Brookes is an office building. Across the street is a Mattress Giant. And then we don't have anything behind us in close proximity. As of right now, the way the current auto repair shop has current exhaust fans that they do use. And then it's an open space. So that bay door will stay open during the duration of during the day. And the fans still blow. And since we're going up height wise, we'll have a fan on that level.
Okay, and my other question is disposal. Typically, you've got a lot of oil products and other related products. Are you going to have a dumpster anywhere, or is it strictly everything's internalized and then it's carried away?
Correct. So we have a third-party contract currently with the owner's auto repair shop. So then he'll carry on that contract where they come in and then they dispose of and take away both the oil drum. So there is an existing oil drum, and that gets carried out on a weekly basis.
Okay, thank you.
I think the one thing, Lloyd, I know this area pretty well, at least the next 2, if not the next 3 lots as you move back into the residential area are actually business commercial uses. They're houses that have been converted. So you're a fair distance away from an actual residence here.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I didn't mean to cause confusion with that, but the buildings, they look residential, but that's true. There's offices nearby.
I would just add too that there's no increase in the floor area of the garage. So we shouldn't be servicing more than the current load of cars that are there now. And they do have an in-ground 500-gallon oil separator as well. That'll be pumped out with that contract that they mentioned, Lloyd. So
Correct.
Yeah, I think the only thing that maybe Lloyd was leading to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Lloyd, but the idea that it's being converted to truck repairs is being created in a way that the volume will accommodate larger vehicles. Does that in any way imply either more heavier use of petroleum products, more noise, a paint booth, or something like that, where there'd be a whole different sort of load on what's been the norm there? And it sounds like not, but just bigger vehicles.
Yeah, this is repair only.
Yeah.
So no different than it's the same. We're going to still continue the concept of autos and trucks, just with heavy deliveries during COVID. That was the best way to pivot for Mr. Abrahim's business plan.
All right. Any other questions from the commission? Go ahead and jump in. Okay. So this is a public hearing, and I will ask Chris, please, would you play the video about how to comment?
Good evening. If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
All right, thanks for that. And I'm looking at the attendee list. No one has their hand up, but I want to encourage anyone who's on that list, if it occurs to you want to say something, we're still going to move through the discussion here, and we can double back to you respecting the unusual circumstance of doing a meeting like this online and maybe some of the difficulties. So, all right, so at this point, let's go ahead and go with the staff recommendation, and then we can move into discussion.
So I just wanted to mention a couple things before I read my recommendation.
Sure.
Just to be clear, auto repair is permitted in CBD, but not auto body. So they can't do body work, they can't do paint work. So there is a separation of those uses in the zone. So it's only repair that's permitted. And as far as the alley work goes, the site plan is part of the special exception. So it is part and parcel of what's being approved is the ability to use that alley in the way that it's designed in the site plan. So if they were to suddenly be incapable of getting that permission or getting ownership of the alley or whatever they need in order for us to be able to issue a permit, it becomes a different site plan. I'm not sure how that would actually even work. It's a very tight site without the alley, and I don't know that they can actually get their parking requirements in without that alley. So what you're approving is this, or recommending the Board of Appeals would then review and approve potentially is the specific site plan.
And to take that one step further, what in a situation where we weren't looking for a special exception, or an applicant wasn't looking for a special exception, we'd look at this as a site plan approval. We're going to do this in one fell swoop as a recommendation, as if we were doing a site plan approval. The Board of Appeals will rule on it formally. Is that fair?
Correct. Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you. So if should I go ahead with the recommendation?
I think so.
Okay. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report findings and recommendation, recommend approval that the Planning Commission approve. Let me start that over. Recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of BOA 8798/2021 special exception to the Board of Appeals, finding it in compliance with sections 24-160 F2C8 and 24-189 of the City Code, with 4 conditions that are included in your packet.
Great, thank you. All right, so we have the proposal to take a relatively obsolete building, rehabilitate it, put it back into service, and increase our business footprint in the city. I don't see a big problem with this, except for that the unfortunate circumstance with the access to the alley, or the access to the final property line. But commissioners, please jump in and comment.
That was a great description, John. I think I would only add that it also cleans up some of that site plan issue with the alley, which is great. So we now have an alley that I cut through on a regular basis. I'm one of those people. And squeezing through that little 12-foot thing is something I'm willing to do, but it'd be great if it was 24 feet, which is what they're proposing, which is wonderful. And then architecturally, I think it's a wonderful addition to the neighborhood to get that building cleaned up. Just architecturally, the use and the business is wonderful, but architecturally, I think it's great too. So.
Yeah, I think the transformation from now to what it's going to be is going to be really nice aesthetically to the neighborhood. So it's certainly going to be a nice addition or a nice update to the neighborhood. I like the way that they're doing the mezzanine and everything else, and the awnings and all. Looks really good.
Absolutely. Lloyd, Phil, anything?
I think you guys have collectively summed it up pretty well.
All right. And then in terms of moving this forward, I guess what I'm sort of hemming and hawing about here is recommending approval. Caroline, I guess you said it. It only works if the alley is made, if they get access to the alley and do the improvements. There's no backing out of that. The site plan would just essentially, or the site plan approval would be invalid if they couldn't get that piece, right? So it would have to.
Right. So that's what the conditions. I mean, they have to satisfy the conditions of approval.
Okay.
Hey, I do have one question, Caroline. Is there going to be new signage for this building? You know, because I had like something there now. I guess that'll go away and there'll be new signage, of course, for this
Yeah,
particular.
the building
business?
elevations actually show some signage. That's not part of the approval because
Okay.
they'll come in for a
Come back, right?
for a sign permit after the fact. But
Okay.
I think if that's the kind of sign that they want, it seems like it would comply with our sign ordinance. So
Okay. All right.
So,
Thanks.
Caroline,
Oh, sorry.
if the board allows me, there's only one concern that we are asking for if there is going to be conditions, that one of the conditions be that we are able to at least start making improvements of the building by allowing us to go ahead and apply for a building permit to start the improvements while we're waiting for the agreements to solidify with the other adjacent owners, since a site work permit is also required. So if there's any way that during this meeting that one of the recommendations be that we're able to make those improvements to not hinder the owner from at least attempting to improve the building and work on the site work and permits as we go ahead and get those agreements in order.
So I'm not sure if that is something that the planning commission has the ability to add, or the Board of Appeals. I think that's more of a function of our permitting department, but Frank might want to jump in and chime in on that. And that's something we might just work out after the approval.
Caroline, I mean, if a building owner comes in and wants to do improvements in their building, they can do that. I think the question is, this would, in an ordinary circumstance, need a site plan approval because of the increase in building height and all of those changes.
Right.
So if we approve a site plan, or the Board of Appeals approves a site plan that includes the improvements to the site, I'm not sure you could get past that.
They would not be able to get a use and occupancy permit. I mean, they're just trying to streamline their process for moving forward while they work on the alley, but they cannot improve the building without improving the site and operate. So it's really just time, you know, I know they're just trying to move forward.
Sure. Frank, you want to jump in?
No, I think you've said it correctly. I would say there may be some changes that they can make just to the building as it exists, but in terms of moving forward to get a use and occupancy and working with permitting, most likely there's not that much that's going to be able to be done, because they've got to satisfy the conditions. That's why those conditions are there.
Yeah.
Somewhat related question, Carolyn, too. The special exception for use, right? So when we're saying that expires with this current owner, but somehow, you know, which I understand, they can, you know, the next tenant or the next owner can apply for a special exception for the same use, right? And but what I'm worried about is the site plan improvements sort of being tied to that. So assuming this gets through Board of Appeals and is approved with the site plan, binding them together worries me just a little bit for the next tenant. Should the next approval have to be tied to these site plan improvements, or will it be strictly a use special exception?
Yeah, if the site functions, if the site plan improvements are made, and then somebody else comes in and wants to operate, then they would apply for a special exception. There wouldn't be any requirement for a change to the site plan, if that's what you're asking. I may not have understood your question, but
no, I think I'm trying to think of a situation that probably can't exist. So that's okay.
I'll put it another way, but let me put it another way. If the applicant didn't need the alley to make this business work, if they were going to add a mezzanine so that they could have, you know, what's an example? They were going to display sailboats with a tall mast, and they just made the building taller so they could do that, but you didn't have to drive around back to get in there and use it as a building. We could approve that as a site plan, as a basic site plan with changes to the building, correct?
Yes, if they can meet all of their other requirements, they would still have parking requirements and, you
Okay.
know, anything the same as any other use coming into any other property. There are just things that are requirements of operating that need to be met. And because this site is so old and has no site plan associated with it, the change in ownership kind of kicked off a need to update the site to current standards.
That's fair. And so it sounds like really the crux of this is that there has to be some on-site parking, whatever that is. Was it 4 spaces or 3 spaces? And that alone put too much pressure on the property line for them to get the circulation
Right.
and the proper. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I think the short answer, Audrey, is that they are in fact high. That to do improvements to the building, to get the permit or get the buildings improved, the site does have to be on its way to getting the improvements as well. I think that's the short answer.
But talk to staff about demolition permits or site improvement permits that are
Absolutely.
general, and talk to staff about what can be done in the interim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what we like is that, Caroline and the staff have been really great and they've worked with us and we're trying to find the best
Sure.
the best process to give relief to the owner, because he is paying for 2 spaces at the moment and he wants to be able to utilize his space, but, make the necessary improvements that the recommendations of the city.
Right. Well, I think at this point, as much as we'd like to help and short circuit some of those processes, I think the foundational work has to be finished, which is something about the title and something about the use of the adjacent property. And the attorneys will have to just, knock that out as quickly as possible, and then you're off to the races. Because I don't see any issues that would stop you from moving forward with a traditional building permit. Assuming the drawings are in order and everything else. It's all about the site plan clearing the boundary issue. So.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. So, commissioners, any other comments or issues? Are we ready for a motion? I don't see anybody raising their hand. Okay. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibit submitted, applicant's testimony, the staff reports, findings, and recommendations, recommend approval of BOA 8798-2021 special exception to the Board of Appeals, finding it in compliance with section 24-160 F.2 C8 and 24-189 of the city code with the 4 conditions as in the record.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Commissioner Wessel.
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman.
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. And I'll reiterate, boy, we are so happy to see you pulling this together, Mr. Bai. I hope everything falls into place because it sure is going to be a great addition to the community here in Gaithersburg. Thank you so much.
Oh,
for
yeah.
this project.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
good luck.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Carla.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. That looks good. So let's move on to our site plan agenda. And tonight we have one. That's for AFP-8826-2021 final architecture for the Crown Neighborhood 3, the 24-foot townhouse units in the MXD mixed-use development zone. And again, this is an amendment to the final site plan. And it looks like, Jasmine, are you presenting from staff, I think? Is that right? Let's give her a second, or give the tech team a second to transfer folks in and out of the meeting. Good evening, Jasmine. How are you?
Nay, I'm gonna wait for one more person to pop up for us.
Okay.
Okay, great. Can I have page 79, please? So staff is before you to present amendment to final site plan application AFP-8826-2021. The applicant's requesting final architecture approval for the new converted 24 townhouse lots located within Crown Neighborhood 3. The proposed plan includes 34 townhouse units that'll be sited along Morrison Drive, Vermeer Avenue, and Crown Park Avenue. This application is based upon previously approved application AFP-8507-2020, which was approved by the Planning Commission on November 4th of 2020. And as part of that condition of that approval, the applicant must submit final architecture and a draft landscape maintenance plan for the townhouse units for Planning Commission review prior to the issuance of the building permit. Next page, please. So as shown on the screen, the subject properties are situated within Crown Neighborhood 3, which is located south of Fields Road and east of Beverly Drive. The primary points of access into Neighborhood 3 are Fields Road, DeCoverly Drive, and the soon to be built Morrison Drive. This application comes before the Planning Commission in accordance with Section 24-172A, which requires the Planning Commission to grant amendments to approved site plans. So I do want to note that staff did receive an outside correspondence today related to this application. So the agenda packet was updated to include that correspondence, and it was also emailed to the commissioners today. Next page, please. And I will have Chris Malm from Craftmark who's going to do the presentation this evening.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine, for that introduction. I'm Chris Malm with Craftmark Homes, here to present our architecture for the 24-foot townhomes in Neighborhood 3 of Crown Farm. Next slide. The architecture we're presenting tonight has been previously approved for our original 38 townhouse lots in Crown Farm. We are requesting that the same architecture be approved for an additional 34 lots, which were recently added to our program. And as Jasmine mentioned, the origin of those 34 lots was Westbrook having converted some of their single family detached lots to townhomes, which is how our add-on 34 lots came to be. This site plan you're looking at now shows all 72 of Craftmark's units hashed in red. The 34 add-on lots are bubbled in red and are located across the bottom side and the right side of the screen. All 72 units have the same footprint. They're 24 foot wide by 42 foot deep and are proposed to be part of the same architecture program, which has been previously approved. The high visibility end units, which are highlighted in yellow, are subject to special design guidelines and received special architectural treatment that I will discuss more later. Next slide, please. Since you guys, I'm sorry, this was in there by mistake. Next slide. Since you guys are familiar with our architecture from our previous submission, I'm planning to give a high-level overview, but feel free to stop me at any time if I go too fast. We have 7 different front elevations and 8 different color schemes. I've spread our 7 different elevations across 2 slides, so I'll spend a bit of time on each so you guys can see them. The fronts are predominantly masonry with water tables made of real 6-inch stone and brick carried over top. Many of the elevations have projecting hardy panel bays, which adds some depth to the units along with opportunity for a pop of color. And you'll notice there are a variety of window grille patterns, window head feature styles, and window arrangements. And when combined with the different brick colors and bay colors, it all helps to provide some individuality to each unit. And we can move on to the next slide, which shows the next 3 elevations. All but one of the elevations has a break in the roof line, whether it be a dormer, a bay, or a gable. And the intention there was to create some variety in the roof line across each townhouse building. We also have 3 different types of canopies which extend over the front stoops, and those provide protection from the elements from a practical standpoint, but also add some emphasis visually on the main entries. We also have 3 different front door styles. And the last thing I'll say about the fronts is they will have 30-year architectural shingles. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to review the side elevations. We have 4 different versions, 3 high-vis versions and 1 standard. All of our end units have stone water tables that turn from the front. And the 3 different versions of the high visibility have brick carried 3 stories above with capped by a shingled water table and hardy plank above that. The high visibility end units vary by the use of awnings and projecting bays. So this is the more plain version of the high visibility end unit, which we call number 1. Next slide, please. This is version 2 of the high visibility side, which uses an awning and double windows. Next slide. And this is the third version, which uses a projecting box bay. Next slide. The low visibility version still keeps the stone water table and the orderly window layout, but the brick is only returned just beyond the first window. And so much of the brick is replaced with hardy plank siding. Next slide. Here I've shown a typical rear strip elevation. The high visibility end units will be full brick in the back with the stone water table turned from the side, whereas all the others will be hardy plank. Only other thing I'll mention is we have optional decks, which is why you see some with and some without. Next slide. Staff has brought to our attention that it's of particular importance that our 6 high visibility end units along Morrison Drive create an interesting streetscape. And we believe that will be achieved through the use of our 3 different high visibility end units and 8 different color schemes, combined with an upgraded landscaping package, which is shown on this site plan view. As you can see from this site plan excerpt, the Morrison Drive end units will be receiving quite an elaborate landscaping package in the side yard, which we believe when combined with the architectural emphasis placed on our high visibility end units will achieve an interesting streetscape. And I'll add that restrictive covenants will be placed on these 6 high visibility end unit lots along a Morrison Drive that require the homeowners to maintain those side yard plantings for the life of the home. So the plantings will always be there and look good.
You know, that came up at a presentation, I think in November. So the property does go all the way out to the sidewalk. It includes these side yards then?
Yes, exactly. And so in the way that we can make sure, even though that's on private property, that they always, maintain those upgraded plantings is through these restrictive covenants, which I believe Westbrook has provided to the city, to get signed off.
Okay.
And to be clear, do those restrictive covenants, are they structured in a way to prevent somebody from, say, adding an addition all the way out to the maximum build to line on the property? Because I know that was our discussion in November. You know, can somebody rip this out and expand the footprint of their house closer to the street? And I just want to make sure we've addressed that.
It's my understanding, and Jasmine, you may be able to speak better to this than me, but it's my understanding that they can't change those plantings. They have to maintain them, and if they die, replace them. And I think that would preclude them from tearing them out for an addition. But to be honest, it's been a month since I've read the addendum, so maybe I can defer to staff if they know anything more on that.
Yep, that's correct. There's a point in the covenants, but it talks about how owner can't remove or take out things on the property.
Well, that's all the remarks I've prepared. I'll open it to you guys for any questions you have.
And just one clarification, just to say it so that if anybody's listening in and doesn't know it, and I'm sure people know it better than I do, Morrison Drive is essentially the edge of the neighborhood at this point, and across that is the future school site. So it's hard to predict exactly what's going to happen up against the edge, although it's probably reasonable to assume it'll be some kind of field or parking, but you never know, right, how the school site will be developed. So it's reasonable perhaps to assume that the neighborhood turning kind of in on itself as opposed to facing the school site makes some sense, but that's certainly up for discussion. But and I don't think we've seen, Jasmine, we haven't seen any preliminary planning for that school, right?
No, we haven't heard anything from the school.
Yeah. Okay. Great, thank you. Commissioners, other questions?
No. I think I have a question. So talking about that side yard again, back to sort of the, I'm supposed, nebulous conversation we had about this last time is that, I do or don't disagree with John. I think it's a fairly prominent entry, whether the school ends up there or not. This is kind of a road that will present itself to a lot of folks that turn into the community and then weave their way through. So when you have someone over for dinner, this is the road they're going to take to get to your house, right? So that it becomes the front door, whether it has a field or whether it has a school next to it. When it has a school next to it, it's going to become a very major, high schools are very important communal civic buildings and have a lot of people coming in and out of them, and it'll become the front door, but just bigger. But in that vein, I'm trying to figure out why there's still a patch of grass between the plantings and the face of the building. You know, what's the need for grass there? And I think some of the conversations we were having last time was to Phil's point. I think, you know, I wasn't at the time thinking anybody was going to expand the footprint, but it was, were they going to put in a fence? Were they going to put in cafe tables? Were they going to make it a paved patio? Was there a use there for that side yard that you see in Kentlands and Crown and you know, most other new urbanist neighborhoods, where you've actually captured the end unit outdoor area and given it to the unit, right? So they can put a little white picket there. They can do whatever they'd like, and they capture that little piece of garden there. You get a little bit of green between that and the sidewalk, and it makes for a nice contained space that's that you can sell, right, along with the unit. But if not, if we don't want that, if that's not a product that appeals to you, then I'm not sure why it's grass. Like, why isn't it ground cover right up to the building and not just a mowable, strange, narrow, private lawn? It doesn't make I don't quite get it.
From my perspective, this landscaping package was provided to us along with the opportunity to do these add-on lots. And so we just ran with it. I did not design the landscaping in the side yard. That was more of something I think that was baked during the conversion of the single families.
Sure. Okay, so you're going to sell these, right? So what is it that appeals to your customer, to you selling to your product? Is it this kidney-shaped lawn that's buffered by planting from the sidewalk? So it's, in my mind, it's unusable, right? But at some reason it's lawn. Or is it better off having ground cover with 2 flowering trees there? Is it better off, you know, so that it becomes not a pedestrian space, right? A nice decorative space. Or is it something you actually want to develop into the building? If it's a lawn, why isn't it a patio? If it's a patio, why isn't it fenced in?
So why don't we do this? I think that's a good question. So it sounds like the answer is he doesn't quite have a programmed, there isn't quite a program requirement yet, or one that he's aware of.
Right.
Let's wrap that into the discussion, because I think it has some real legs, but it would be a discussion item. So
yeah.
Are any other questions on the presentation?
Nope.
No.
Okay. No? All right. Then to be thorough, let me say, is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify? You saw the presentation about pressing the hands up button. I see one attendee in the attendee list. Up, hand went up. Great. So Chris, would you please bring over Mr. Rob or Ms. Rob? Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Are you there?
Yeah, I am, but I don't know. I pressed unmute.
Okay, you're not on mute. We can hear you. So if you have some
okay.
comments, yeah.
Okay. I'm Wajida Rob, and I'm on the. I'm representing the Homeowners Association of the Flats at Crown.
Okay.
And overall, we support the units and the development that's been proposed. And I was here last November also. I just had a very minor comment, and which is the downspout detail that's shown on the site plan with river rocks from the downspout towards the adjacent sidewalk. And we would prefer a 3 feet minimum grass strip between the downspout river rock and the sidewalk, because in some of the other townhouses we noticed that there are rocks from the building line all the way up to the curb line, and that makes it less attractive than a grass strip or a landscape strip.
Okay, I see. Okay. All right. Anything else? Can you hear me? Anything else?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments. And I don't think there's anyone else queued up in the attendee list to speak. Chris, do you have any other indication that someone might have dialed in or anything? Guess not.
That's it. I don't see anybody.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I think I understood the comment about the landscaping and to maintain a buffer at the edge of the sidewalk, and that makes perfect sense. And it appears that that's the case on these end units. Is that true?
Yes.
So any downspout gravel or loose paving to try to buffer the splash is back from the sidewalk.
Absolutely. I read the letter that was sent in about that issue, and I can be certain that it won't apply. It does not apply to any current Craftmark units that are there,
Okay.
and it won't apply to any in the future.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so I think where we are right now, Jasmine, is to go to the recommendation, and then we can move into discussion.
So staff recommends that the planning commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony and staff report, findings and recommendation, grant AFP 8826 2021, finding it in compliance with sections 24-170 and 24-172A of the city code with one condition.
All right, thank you. So commissioners, what do you think? Anybody want to jump in? Good, bad? Matt, you might have said.
Yeah, I'll get back into it then, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, this is what we thought was coming, and this was similar to the planting sketch that we saw back for the sketch plan or schematic.
Yes,
And I think we had some of the conversations about trying to do something with it, and sort of picking a path. And my only comment about this solution is that it just doesn't pick a path. It's not like if you stuck a couple of flowering trees there, that would be a decision, right? It would be a full bed that nobody stands on, right? And it's a real buffer along with the bed plantings. But when you have the edge plantings and then a big patch of grass up against the building, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's either a patio or it's a tree safe.
Yeah, I think to borrow from some of the new urbanism language and early patterns that I think we saw emerge from some of the Kentlands development, there's this concept that if it's going to be maintained by a homeowner, then they have to really own it, not legally. I mean, legally, yes, but they also have to own it in terms of what its purpose and its attractiveness even being there. So I think to Matt's point, it either has to be habitable or it has to be passive, but it's passive. It can't be something they have to maintain. So if you imagine a clump of trees, that would be beautiful all by itself without having to go out and mow grass and take care of flowers. That frankly, most of the week they won't even notice because they'll be coming and going from their garage or their front door and not have any reason to be there. So I think there is something to that, but I don't know that I think it's a step 2 in this whole process where that landscape plan, we could give direction on what that needs to do. And I think that could be worked through either with a set of conditions or a set of guidelines from us tonight, or pointing to maybe an example or two. But I do think that issue or that comment is extraordinarily valid, because the alternative is that whole side of the street or that whole side of the edge of the development, they'll be constantly doing battle with the HOA because something will have died or something will have been unkept. And instead of being motivated to do it and do it better, it'll be just barely kept up to standard because we'll be getting letters from some enforcement, process. And we know that never works. It really has to be a space that a homeowner will really want to own and use. And there's lots of ways of doing that, as Matt said. So anything else that we want to get into on this, Matt?
So maybe I can help narrow it down too. I was bringing back up the conversation we were having with Westbrook about, does that want to be a merchandise space? Does it want to be part of the property? that gets used as a patio at, put a door in it, make it a patio like most of our new urbanist communities in the city do. But I think that was before we had an actual builder, right? So now we have a builder in front of us and they don't appear interested. So I think that leaves us with the planting idea. So I think I don't think it needs to be a condition other than, applicant to work with staff to add to this area to make sure that it is a more stable landscape design. And my simple recommendation is something vertical on that lawn space, whatever they prefer, will sort of solve the problem.
Good point. All right. Anyone else? Lloyd, Danny, Phil?
No, I think I don't have anything else. I mean, I think Matt's comments are spot on as far as landscaping. I think the architecture looks great. So no other concerns for me.
Okay. Danny,
I think the variety is compatible with the other buildings. So I'm perfectly fine with that.
By the way, is the fourth floor, whenever there's a fourth floor dormer or attic dormer, those aren't loft spaces, are they, or are they? Would they be developed as usable space?
We have optional lofts, yeah. So and actually all the units that we built so far, and I would predict that all the units we build in the future will have lofts. That's just been where the market's been. But technically on our plan, it's an option.
Okay, well, that's good news because it's nice to see real windows and not fake ones, right?
The applicant, I should note, the applicant didn't show the material spread, but it's a really great spread. So it's a really great sort of selection of colors, and the vibrancy is great there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was my only comment. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, yeah, and I'll echo that. I think, it should be said, these are nicely done units. The design, the selection of material is all very high quality. I think it was just this idea of how to marry that condition to the streetscape in a more appropriate way that has us a little bit turned. So, Matt, do you want to recommend that we add a condition about working with staff to work through this landscape plan and provide a little bit more direction?
That sounds safest. Jasmine, does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, do you want this to come back to planning commission, or is this
No.
something
No.
I have full faith that you can handle it, Jasmine.
Right.
what I'm understanding the concern is there's too much yard space on the side.
Which grass? Yeah, grass is a usable surface, and there's nobody that's going to use it. So let's make it, put some trees there. More ground cover, whatever. You can use the exact same design and put two flowering trees, maybe three. I don't know how big it is, but
I think what you have to imagine is a scenario, just if I can jump in and kind of paraphrase, you have to imagine a scenario where a homeowner wouldn't take care of it for 3 months, and that would be okay.
Mhm.
Or they would use the space every day, and that would be okay.
Yep.
That you have to sort of imagine those two scenarios, and that has to work.
Yep. That's a much better way of putting it. Yeah.
But if they put in a couple of trees and the homeowner decides to put a hammock between the trees, that's perfectly
Beautiful.
fine.
Well, yeah. See, Lloyd found the intermediary use. It's not every day, and it's not every 3 months. Lloyd found it. It's a hammock. That's what it is.
In fact, what you guys ought to do is when you have your model, you should put a hammock in the closet for all these whenever you settle in the house.
Great sales piece. Yeah. Sales piece.
Put it next to the model.
More landscape in their places, kind of fill it up a bit more.
Fill the space.
Yeah, and I think it does need something vertical, but yeah, fill it up with landscape. It's not a usable spot. Like John said, it's either going to be used every day or it's never going to be used. So we need to, if it's never going to be used, which I think is the option that we have here in front of us, then it needs to be filled up.
So to clarify, you would like us to eliminate the grass in the side yard and replace it with landscaping?
Yeah.
Okay.
But landscaping, be smart about it. The landscaping can't demand, maintenance and manicuring every week for the HOA to accept that it's being maintained. It has to be something that makes sense if it's hands off for 3 months. If it goes the whole growing season without the homeowner taking care of it, it still needs to maintain this sense of being tied to this, much like a street tree would. Once a week or once a year, the city will come through and do some pruning on street trees. They'll put some mulch down, the homeowners association. But generally speaking, the streetscape kind of holds its own all year without having to do a lot of intervention. That's the same kind of concept here. It can't demand a lot work, or else you're just inviting the HOA to be constantly on these folks for enforcement.
Yeah, well, with grass, you've got the mowing. With mulch beds and plantings, you've got the weeding. So it's kind of like pick your poison, but the weeding is probably less regular. So maybe that's the better option.
Yeah,
It is. Trees are even better.
Or ground cover, Vinca. I mean, that stuff grows like.
Yeah, ground cover is great. You probably need something a little bit vertical there. So if you get some combination of ground cover and small flowering trees, and you're all set.
yeah. All right, anything else to hit tonight? Okay, so Jasmine, we're gonna add a condition, right? Do you have something kind of worded there? Or?
Greg. I think as I'm trying to figure out a word, applicant to work with staff to, I guess, further.
I think you could just say to further refine the landscape design along the facade or along the side yard.
Sounds great.
Fill in the landscaping.
All right, let's keep it focused. So it's at the key lots.
Yeah, I would add clarifying language that it's along the lots, the side yard lots along Morrison Drive.
Yes. Yes.
I got it.
All right, do you want to read it back just for the record, please?
I have is applicant to work with staff to further refine the landscape design along the side yard. Sorry. Applicant to work with staff to further refine the landscape design for the side yards along Morrison Drive.
Okay, that'll work. And I think from the discussion tonight, you all have plenty of direction on how to make that work. So any other concerns, commissioners?
No.
Okay, is there a motion, please?
Chairman, I move that the planning commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the applicant's testimony and the staff report, findings and recommendation, grant AFP 8826-2021, finding compliance with section 24-170 and 24-172A of the city code with the two conditions as read into the record.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Commissioner Wessel?
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Chris, thank you very much for the presentation. It's going to be a good looking addition to the neighborhood. I hope you appreciate the direction on the landscaping.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, that takes us to from the commission. Lloyd, may I start with you?
Nothing to add other than school's going to open up next week in a lot of places. So be careful out there. The buses are going to be back.
Yeah, we've had the elementary school kids back now for 3 weeks, I think. It's interesting to see those out front. Matt, anything tonight?
No, nothing for me.
Danny?
I just hope everybody's got their shots or got a schedule to get their shot done.
If you got one for me, I'll take it.
But this, my current job right now is as a contact tracer, and it's really important that we get through this time.
Yeah, you're
That's all.
Good point. Danny, by the way, any news from the state planning commissioners? I know we saw our renewal notice, and I think staff is taking care of that for us.
Yeah, we have a meeting on Friday, so I'll have more information for you at our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, but we are, because you all are close to me, we are planning to try to have our annual conference in person this year. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. So we'll see what happens.
All right, that's good news. Good to be optimistic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Phil,
I'll have more next month.
Okay, sounds good. Phil, anything tonight?
Nope, nothing from me.
All right, you're busy at doing all your spring home improvement works. I can tell by the.
I've got the never-ending list.
Yeah. You're an ambitious one. You don't do anything small. I'm impressed.
Try not to. My wife wishes I would.
Yeah. Greg, what's the news from the front office?
Yep, just some updates on some upcoming meetings. We have 2 joint public hearing dates scheduled currently on Monday, April 19th and Monday, May 3rd. And then the next planning commission meeting is April 21st.
Yes, it is. All right.
And Greg, you have me down as not able to attend the 19th, right?
That is correct, I do.
All right. Very good. John, hello there. Welcome to our meeting this evening.
Good evening, Commission. Yes, I was off camera for a while because I actually made dinner for my wife and we ate it all while I was paying rent to this meeting. So, but I did want to give you all a update on Lake Forest Mall, the master plan amendment process. We are in the process of setting up in what we call intentional engagement meetings. This is during the public comment process, which will end shortly before your public hearing, the joint public hearing on June 7th. We are setting up 5 meetings with each of the individual owners of Lake Forest Mall. We're going to have 2 public meetings, one during the day and one during the evening. And then 3, I believe it's 3 specific meetings, one with the chamber, the Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber, another with Montgomery Village, and the other one with Asbury Methodist Village. So we are trying to get out there, make sure that people are aware. The meetings will consist of presentations of the tournament itself and gathering comments as a result of that. So, we anticipate there'll be about an hour apiece, and all of the input will be in the record for your public hearing on June 7th.
So when you meet with the property owners, you're saying that meeting will be public for like observation or participation, or what's?
They will all be public and recorded, but they are 5 individual meetings with the owners. We're not going to do all the owners at once. We're going to do 5 individual owners.
Okay, but what I guess what I'm asking is, if the public tunes into those, are they able to comment and ask questions, or are they really just observing?
They're observing.
Okay.
Those meetings, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Anything else from anyone? Frank, everything going well with you? Or have you been giving any more training on open meetings with all this lockdown?
Actually, I was. Actually, haven't in the last few months. We did quite a bit last year, and I think partly that was because of the newness of trying to adapt to the virtual setting. But there has been some discussion about the need for a somewhat similar training to what we did, I believe it was September a few years ago, that was really a basic open meetings training that now would incorporate the virtual setting as well. Maybe like the Planning Commissioners Association, we would hope in thinking about the fall that maybe we could try to put something together that's in person. But if not, at some point, probably before the end of this year, we will be putting something together, because I'm getting a couple of calls for it, and we've had a couple of requests. So if need be, we will put something together virtually, and certainly if there's any need, we can do them individually for the commissioners as well. But part of the point of doing the overall training is to give some new commission members the chance to be certified.
Sure. Well, good. All right. Well, thanks for that update. If there's nothing else from anyone, I look across the grid here for any flailing arms, and nope, no flailing arms. All right. Have a good evening. We are adjourned.
Okay.